And then we open it up to any questions that any of you might have. So there's a mic right here, and you can just feel free to come up to the mic and share your name, and then share your question. आप एक काम करो भैया, जाके वो थोड़ा सा भैया इनको बोल देना थोड़ा सा आवाज़ कम रखो बाहर. I want to believe that everything happens for a reason. But there are times when life feels random and cruel. How can I find meaning in difficult circumstances and have faith in a higher plan? This is asked by Fatima from Casablanca in Morocco. When we say everything happens for a reason, the way that most of us understand it is it happens for a reason, therefore it is good and pleasant. And that isn't true. The fact that there's a reason for it doesn't mean that it's pleasant. Doesn't mean it's enjoyable, doesn't mean that it ticks any of the boxes that we would consider good. But there is a reason, and there is what you could call a purpose, a higher purpose. A lot of times our growth happens through pain and suffering. I know that on a personal level, I would never rewind history and take away the ways that I've suffered, because I've learned so much through it. And everyone I know who's been through suffering feels the same way. Not in the middle of it, not while you are pulling your hair out in suffering, but in retrospect, because it takes us into a depth of understanding that it's very difficult to get without suffering. So everything happens for a reason, yes. That reason is typically karma. Something in the past triggered that which is happening today. Something you did, something someone else did, something a group of people did, but something started dominoes, one hitting another, hitting another, hitting another, hitting another, hitting another. If you found yourself in the middle or at the end of one of those really long, hundreds or thousands of dominoes long, art projects, and you see them all going over like this, what assumption would you be able to make? You'd know that somewhere prior to where you're watching it, somewhere in the beginning of the line of dominoes, someone knocked one of them over. Or a wind came, or an earthquake happened. But something happened that knocked the first domino over, due to which all of the other ones are falling. It's just basic science, it's basic logic. In the same way, when things happen in life, yeah, they happen for a reason. It's not random. Something in the past, some past karma, was a domino that hit over, and now we are seeing the repercussions. But that doesn't mean it's going to feel good. That doesn't mean it's going to be enjoyable. It doesn't mean, okay, well now I know the reason so I can, enjoy my pain. It's still pain. But it's pain of that moment rather than what the Buddhists speak about as the second arrow. In the Buddhist tradition, in spiritual tradition, psychological tradition, they talk about the first arrow and the second arrow. The first arrow is quite literally the arrow that hit you. It caused pain. Hit you in the leg, your leg hurts. Hit you in the back, your back hurts. There's blood, there's swelling, there's all of the things you would expect if you got shot by an arrow. The second arrow is when the mind goes, oh my God, I can't believe it happened to me. And on my wedding day, like, can you imagine the day that I'm supposed to be the happiest in the world, I get shot by an arrow? Or, oh my God, now I'm not going to make it to the job interview. I'm going to miss the job that I was supposed to get. These things always happen to me. The universe is against me. God hates me. Nothing goes right for me. That's the second arrow. First arrow, someone else shot. Or the universe shot. First arrow is just the stuff of life. You fall down, there's a car accident, the stock market crashes, you get fired from your job, whatever it is. That too, of course, happens because of past karma. But for right now, it's the stuff of your life. It's that which is happening in your life. But the second arrow is the one that you fire yourself, right in that moment. The second arrow is the one that tells a story about the first arrow, in which nothing is going to go right, nothing will be right. You are not meant to have good things. You don't deserve love. You will always be suffering. You deserve the suffering. There is nothing but suffering. This just proves that there is nothing but suffering. And so, when things happen in life, yeah, they happen for a reason. Their happening is the first arrow. The second arrow is us saying the world is cruel. It's random, it's cruel. There's no rhyme or reason. Nothing you can do. Nothing makes a difference. It's the second arrow. And that's the arrow that leads to prolonged suffering. It's the arrow that leads to depression. It's the arrow that leads to hopelessness. It's the arrow that leads to laziness, dejection, despair. So, yeah, there is a reason for things. We may not know the reason for things. In order to see the reason, you've got to be able to step back far enough that you can see a full picture. Full picture. A lot of times we can't in life. One lifetime isn't necessarily long enough to see the full picture. But we've got to trust that there is a full picture. And that if we just could step back far enough to see it, it would make sense. It's like in museums. They always have you stand, right? They put some mark on the ground, or they put the chair or the bench at a distance away from the paintings. If you go to any famous museum with nice paintings, they'll always have something there for where you're supposed to see the painting from. Not up close like this. The most beautiful paintings in the world do not look beautiful when you're like this. You can't even tell what they are. You can't see the beauty. You only can see the beauty when you're far away. And the same is true in our life. So, if you can step back far enough, do it. If you can't, trust that there is a tapestry and that all of these happenings are threads in the tapestry, but you cannot see the whole tapestry. And don't let the second arrow go. Just recognize, okay, whatever the reason was, I don't know it. Here's the first arrow. This pain, this suffering, this loss, It happened. My house burned down. There was an earthquake. I got fired. Stock market this. Rose, whatever it was. Tripped on the way to my wedding. Tripped on the way to my job interview. Stubbed my toe the night of the big dance. Can't wear the shoes. Whatever it may be. Big things, little things. Superficial things, deep things. There's some reason behind them. Even if simply the reason is you were staring at your phone while you walked and so you tripped. A reason doesn't necessarily mean some huge, cosmic, great purpose of it. It may just be the universe needed to teach you a lesson before you fell down and cracked your head open. And so you get the lesson with a stubbed toe rather than a cracked head. But there's always a reason. And just stop yourself the moment that second arrow starts to come. And ask yourself, why am I adding misery to misery? I'm already miserable. This thing already happened. Why do I now need to have my own mind make me more miserable by telling me a story about it that has no bearing in reality? You stubbed your toe. Maybe you were looking at your phone. Maybe you were exhausted. Maybe your eyes were half closed. Whatever it was. It just happened. But don't allow yourself to concoct the whole story that is just going to ruin your mood and keep you stuck in that misery. And when you get stuck by an arrow, what do? Take it out, right? Bandage the wound. So when there's suffering and pain, we do whatever we can do to take care of that, but without the second arrow story. Because yeah, there is a lot of cruelty in the world, but that cruelty is not random. And there's also a lot of beauty in the world. And there's a lot of goodness in the world. And none of it's random. It's all the fruits of the seeds that we are planting, or the fruits of the seeds that others are planting. Together we are creating this garden. And what we see blossom is based on seeds we've planted. So we just use it as a reminder to plant new seeds. To plant seeds of goodness, seeds of peace. Yeah, great question. Other questions? Yes, of course, please come forward.
Namaste.
Stay.
Thank you. I'm Vandana, and I have come from Delhi with my daughter. This is our day 3 in Satsang, and I must say that we have received immense learnings. So thank you. I wanted to ask about certain things that we've been feeling since the last couple of days, and especially now. It's about Sambhav. Like a lot of wise people talk about maintaining the same emotions and the same behavior, whether, whatever circumstances throw up to you. But I feel, and I'm sure a lot of other people also feel, I see it in my family, that our emotions and behaviors change as per the circumstances multiple times during the day.
Yes.
Happiness, sadness, anxiety, especially anxiety.
Yes.
So how do we come close to Sambhav?
Yeah, great. Equanimity. This is a core topic and teaching in the Bhagavad Gita. The trick, the hack to finding equanimity is actually to start finding it in times of great pleasure. When do we look for it? In times of great pain. But you cannot have the ups without the downs. And so what happens with most of us is we love the ups. And then when the downs come, we're like, oh my God, please give me some equanimity here. But then when it starts going up, we're all too ready to go back up again. And this is where Bhagavan Krishna explains so clearly that that state of equanimity is that you're balanced in pleasure and pain, gain and loss, success and failure. You can't do it just for the negative. If you're going to be ecstatic around every achievement, every success, every good date, every great piece of pie or pizza or whatever, well then, it's okay. I mean, everybody has total free will to live however they want, but you can be sure that you're also going to find yourself in moments of anxiety, frustration, sadness, depression, loss. But it's much easier to find equanimity and to remember to have equanimity in times of joy than in times of pain. So start the next time that you achieve something and the mind goes, oh wow, yeah, I'm the best, this is great, just, equanimity does not mean indifference. It doesn't mean you don't care. It's not apathy. But it means that you are balanced. That you're balanced. That you don't lose your anchoring and grounding. Ah, wonderful. Ah. And this too. A success? Ah, very nice. A failure? And this. Someone loves you and is very nice and respectful to you. Ah. Someone is not so nice or respectful to you. Ah. And this. And you learn to acknowledge, to notice. Again, it's not like putting a rock in your heart. It's not saying thou shalt not feel happy. But it's saying your happiness should not be based superficially. Otherwise, if my happiness is based superficially, then when things outside are not making me happy, by definition, they're making me what? Sad. If I'm depending on outside things for happiness and they're not happening the way I want them to, then by definition, I'm going to be sad. And that's the dilemma. As you say, कि हम लोग परिस्थिति. In Hindi, paristiti means that which is happening outside of us, the external situations. Paristiti determines our swastiti. Swastiti is my personal situation. Stiti is like the state that you are in, current circumstance. So paristiti is that which is happening, circumstances outside around me. Swastiti is that which is happening inside me. And you're right, most of our swastiti is determined by paristiti. It's a nice day, I'm happy. Not a nice day, I'm sad. People do what I want, I'm calm and peaceful. They don't do what I want, I'm anxious. The answer is to drop deeper. It's not stop feeling happy, it's not stop caring, it's not disconnect yourself. But it's drop deeper. Let your happiness come from a source that is not based on paristiti. Because paristiti is going to go up and down. It'll rain, it won't rain. It'll be hot, it'll be cold. The weather, the people. It's going to keep changing. It's the nature of nature. We meditate to find that place within ourselves that doesn't change, so that your happiness stays constant. It's like right in this hall every morning in the morning prayers, we chant that beautiful prayer of Sitaram, Sitaram, Sitaram Kahiye, Jahi Vidi Rakhe Ram, Tahi. Wherever you keep me, O God, whatever situation you keep me in, just let me be happy. Let me keep chanting your name. Let me be anchored in you, grounded in you. You give me a mansion, you give me a hut, whatever you give me, let me just be anchored in you and therefore always happy. Pujya Swamiji calls it the always happy song. It's all about that. Whatever you give me, let me take that as my prasad. So go deeper. You're never going to change paristiti. Find your happiness, your source of happiness deeper. And just notice whatever happens in the world. And so it is. And this. And this. Just, you notice it. Doesn't mean you can't have preferences. Again, it doesn't mean you become a robot. But it's just, you don't go up and down with it. You're anchored in something much deeper. Good. Of course. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. And then you.
Good evening. My name is Manish. We have come from Hyderabad, India. My question is, in the modern world, there are a set of people who are quite ritual in nature. They go to temple every day. They follow auspicious days. They do vrat.
Can you come just a little closer to the mic?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
And there are a set of people who are not very ritualistic, but they are spiritual by heart. So they believe in God. They feel that every entity of the world, the God has gifted, so they take care of it. And somewhere I heard that, those spiritual people, they feel that inside temple somehow rich people beg, and the outside temple the poor people beg. So there's a set of wall which is dividing the rich versus poor. So what are your insights that who is more powerful or relevant? Is the person who is ritual in nature or the person who is spiritual in nature?
Great. Which is more powerful, the rituals or the spirituality? Definitely the spirituality, absolutely. That's why we do rituals. When I speak in the evening Ganga Arati, one of the things that I frequently talk about is that we do all of these rituals. We have this yagna, we offer the ahuti, we offer rice, we offer ghee, we perform the arati, we do all of the rituals. But the rituals are not for God. God is not saying, oh my God, I'm so hungry, I wish someone would give me some ghee or some rice. God's not thirsty, can please someone just thoda sa jal. God's not hot, waiting for us to fan him, right? I mean, all of these things we do. It's not for God. God has given us all of these. So it wouldn't make any sense that what God needs from us is for us to then give it back to God. The point of rituals is to make you spiritual. Life is very busy. And as we just heard in the former question, most of us spend most of our life very anxious, stressed. To take away time for spiritual practice is difficult for most people. We should. Everybody should. But it's one of the things that comes up all the time here. How to make time, what's enough time? Rituals are things that our sages and our saints and our rishis gave us to make people stop what they're doing and connect with the divine. We have very long work days here, even at the ashram. So many projects, so many programs, so much seva, children and women and medical care and environment. I mean, so many programs. If we didn't have the Ganga Arati, most of us would just work till dinner, or even forget about dinner and work till we were exhausted and go to sleep. And we are spiritual people. Having a ritual is a very powerful and very effective way to say, stop, it's Arati time. Whatever you're doing, just stop, it's Arati time. That's the role rituals are supposed to play, to get us to stop in our daily life and to spend some time remembering the divine, remembering ourselves, reconnecting. And so if you give it a spiritual benefit, not just telling people you're going to become spiritual, but if you tell them this is a way to get what you want from God, people are much more likely to do it, right? Oh, you want something? Do a yagna. You want something from God? Do this japa, do this puja. And it's not that people don't get it, of course. People get so many blessings. But it's not a bargaining situation. It's not like, okay, God, I'll give you so many rounds of japa or so many abhisheks and you give me this. It's through doing those rituals, I become so deeply connected to the divine that I become a channel for that divine flow of the universe. I become so connected that things just start to flow. So, yeah, our rishis and our sages gave us these. You know, telling people, this is for good luck, this will make your house pure and auspicious, this will... Knowing that people then will sit for the rituals, do the rituals. Even if people think it's to make God happy, that's okay. Whatever the reason that people do it is. Ultimately, as they sit, they're connecting. So the ritual is a madhyam, a technique, a medium. It's not that God says you have to do that and then you will get enlightenment. The real point is become spiritual. Because rituals with no spirituality are just a waste of ghee and rice and flowers, and you're better off making sandwiches and giving them to the poor people on the streets. If those rituals are not making you feel connected to God, and you're performing them having shopping lists in your mind, or grudges lists, or desires lists, or things like that, just feed the poor instead. Until you can sit in a ritual and actually get yourself connected to God, do something else instead. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Her, because I just told her, and then you right after. Okay.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Yeva, and I live in Sweden, and thank you for this opportunity.
Of course.
I have a very personal question, one I sat with for almost a year. And I am a yoga teacher. I have a community. I teach. I end every class by Hari Om Tat Sat. All is one, and that is the truth. And I've been very challenged in the last year by the collective suffering, especially what's been happening in Palestine as we have been witnessing probably the first live stream genocide ever. So we all see it on our screens, and it breaks my heart, and it really made me question what spirituality is about and what the role of the spiritual leaders is about, especially teachers that I held in high regard kept silent. And I believe that spirituality is about truth, and as we witness, we need to say. And I believe that we have a role to play in the collective. So there is a lot of like this love and light, let's just focus on good, let's forget about the suffering. But for me, that's out of integrity. And so I would like to ask you, what does spiritual mean in that context? And what is our role as leaders for our communities? And what is a relevant, grounded, embodied response that is not bypassing?
Beautiful. Beautiful question. Yeah, this is, as you can imagine, a subject and topic that comes up frequently. And it's an important one. I agree with you fully. The role of spirituality is to be channels, to be instruments of peace, of love, of oneness, of truth, to speak to that, to work for that. It's something that we've been always very, very committed to on the ground. And whether it's ending open defecation. I mean, for example, when we first started our work here for water, sanitation, hygiene, 1,500 children a day under the age of 5 were dying, just in India, just under the age of 5 every day, because of the practice of defecating in the open. We got on stages, spiritual leaders. People are used to, us talking about how to attain liberation. And suddenly it was build toilets, use toilets, stop pooping outside. And, people couldn't believe it, like high-level spiritual leaders. And we brought all of the different leaders of different religions together to help people understand this is not a religious thing. Diarrhea does not discriminate. Cholera does not discriminate. Let us come together. And we've taken those sorts of campaigns, ending open defecation, ending the taboo around menstruation, so that girls can stay in school and continue to be educated even on the days that they're menstruating. But they can't do that if there's a taboo, and so they don't learn how to take care of themselves. And again, taking to big religious stages, talking about this. Each evening in the Ganga Aarti, we're talking about planting trees and stopping the use of single-use plastic and stopping pollution and conscious consumption and, being vegetarians and buying sustainable fashion and whatever you consume, be conscious about it. That is the voice of spirituality. And it's what we consider prayer in action, meditation in action, spirituality in action. And moving outward from that, wherever there are things happening that are against our spiritual precepts, we speak about it. Just less than a month ago, 3 weeks ago, we were celebrating Navaratri, which is the 9-day festival dedicated to the Mother Goddess. But what are we talking about in the Aarti and in all of our online videos? Stopping the violence against women and girls in the home and in the society. Using that opportunity of the days dedicated to worship of the Mother Goddess to say, hey, that goddess you're worshiping in your temple lives in your wife, in your daughter, in your sister, in your mother. And do not think that the Mother Goddess is happy with you for your prayers in the temple if you go home and don't treat the women and girls in your life in the same way. So whatever violence it is, whether it's that sort of gender-based violence or whether it's wars, it's critical to be vocal about it. It's critical to do whatever one can do, whether the devastation is man-made, whether the devastation is nature-made, tsunamis, earthquakes. The role of spiritual leaders is to do whatever we can to help. The challenge, the very real challenge around situations like wars taking place in other countries, where we are not their leaders. We don't have a vote in their country. We're not paying taxes in their country, so we don't have any economic power. It's not a matter of like whose brand of what am I buying? What am I supporting with my money? It's not about who am I voting for. It's not about anybody who's in any situation of power in those places caring at all what we say, because we don't have any political power, any economic power over them. It's not like any of us owns water bodies that their ships are going through that we can say, okay, until you end this, we're not going to let your ships pass through. We're not going to buy your items. And this is also a very important part of spirituality, is being really clear about where your right action actually can have a positive ripple impact. And it's heartbreaking. It breaks your heart, it breaks all of our hearts. If it doesn't break your heart, you're not human. And sitting with the heartbreak and the recognition that yes, we need to raise our voices individually and collectively. Yes, we need to push our elected officials to use the power they have to stop violence. And simultaneously recognizing that our individual hours of the day and energy and time, chances are, isn't actually going to make a big difference in what's going on there. But it can make a very big difference about what's going on in our own streets. And that there are children dying on our streets. And they're not dying in the same way, they're not dying for the same reason. But children dying of hunger, or children dying of diarrhea, or children dying of homelessness is no less tragic than children dying from some of the most awful violence that we've ever seen. Children shouldn't be dying at all for any of those reasons. And as our hearts break, to also allow a bit of our thinking mind to come in and to say, okay, those children, as of now, I don't have the power to save. God, give me some more power, I will use it. Until I have the power to save them, is there anything I can do to save other children? Are there places in which I can get free medical care to kids who don't have it? Can I get food to kids who don't have it? Can I, raise money, and if it's not going to be able to, reach the people I want it to reach in the Middle East, can it reach the victims of floods and earthquakes and hurricanes and droughts that we're seeing all over the world? And really be clear with using what we have to make the biggest difference that we can. And never underestimating the power of prayer and the power of using your voice. So yeah, we use our voice, and we use our time and our energy to make as much of a change in bringing about peace You know, when we first founded our organization around water and sanitation and hygiene, one of the core principles that we founded it upon was that the definition of peace needs to expand. That it's no longer enough for religious leaders to just say, "Thou shalt not kill," with guns or bombs or machetes or whatnot, but that our definition of peace now needs to include, "Thou shalt not pollute the water that others are drinking downstream and suffering and dying," because that is also violence. "Thou shalt not continue to spend your money supporting industries and companies whose waste is polluting our air and our water and our soil, or whose cheap items are being produced in sweatshops or with child labor." And that working to stop all of that is also work for peace. And so allow your heart to break, but don't allow the mind to get disheartened and frustrated and therefore paralyzed and immobilized, because there's lots of places where you actually can make a difference. Yeah. Yes, last question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Myself Hirvedya, and I am a student. Actually, study is my passion. So I want to ask you that what to do if I want to be successful in my life.
Beautiful. Study is your fashion?
Passion.
Passion. Lovely. Studying is also fashionable, by the way. I love that. Wonderful. The best way to be successful is to be sincere. Whatever you do, do it sincerely. I imagine in your studies you have found that you're not necessarily good at everything. But even the things that you're not good at, as long as you are in school and you have to do them sincerely. Even if you know this particular subject is not my passion. I'm not even good at it. No matter what I do, mujhse hote hi nahi hai. It's okay. Nobody is good at everything. But be sincere about it. Whatever you do, don't do anything half-heartedly. Don't do anything while you were wishing you were doing something else. Whatever you do it fully, do it sincerely. And ask yourself, how can I be the best instrument of bringing goodness to the world? And there's no right answer. Some people study science and go to medical school and they become doctors. Some people become scientists and they discover cures for different illnesses or some other innovation. Some people become school teachers. Maybe they go and they work in the poor areas and they provide education to people who can't afford it. People start companies that are going to do some good work for the world. People make music. They create art, they create poetry, they create literature that fills people's hearts and minds with depth. People do so many things. There's no one right profession. But just make sure that what drives you is wanting to make a positive difference in the world. Don't let anyone convince you that success equals money. It does not. I promise you that. Success does not equal money. It does not equal a big house. It does not equal a big car. It does not equal fancy clothes. Success equals, at the end of the day, going to sleep at night and knowing that what you've done is having, either immediately or at some point in the future, going to have a ripple impact in the world of goodness. Okay? So let that be your guiding principle. And then, even before you get older, even as you're in school, every day see, are there ways that I can do anything to help other people? Maybe somebody else is struggling in a class and I can help them. Maybe somebody seems really hungry and anxious and I can let them get in front of me in line in the cafeteria. Whatever it is, little things. But just see how your life can be something that brings more and more goodness into the world. And lastly, remember that who you are is the divine. You are not your test scores. You are not your marks. You are not your ranking in class. You are not the university you go to. That is not who you are. Because when we're students, it's very difficult to not feel really stressed and then really bad about ourselves if we don't do so well. But just remember, that's not who you are. It's just a mark. It's just an exam. All it means is you took the test well or you didn't take the test well. That's all that matters. You just do your sincere best. And remember that God has given you all of the tools that you need to be your very best self. So never, ever, ever feel less than. Never feel like you're lacking in any way. And anybody who tries to convince you that you're lacking in any way, find a new friend. Okay? Wonderful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yes, thank you. Have a... Yes?
It's related to the last, not this girl question, but the men's question, with the pujas and everything we do. You know, when sometimes we collect in our life the papas and punyas from the past lives. And then when we go and do astrology reading or something reading, they say this is happening in your life because something you have done in the past life. And then they recommend some things for you to do, or offering here, or doing this, or what's your thinking on that?
It's a great question. Let's start with it tomorrow.
Okay.
Done. So tomorrow we'll start with this question about doing pujas, doing rituals to smooth over the karmic impacts of the past as told to us sometimes by astrologers. Yeah, we'll start with that tomorrow. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evenings. A beautiful day to our family joining us online. And so much love to you all.